Hey everyone, it's Anima here. I know, it feels like forever since my last video. But life's been throwing me a few curveballs in the past few weeks. You know how it is, right? But, amidst the chaos, I finally managed to dive into something that I've been putting off for way too long. Battle Angel Alita. And let me just say, I was not ready for the twist, the intensity, the sheer roller coaster of emotions, and the absolute peak Crashouts portrayed in this story. And honestly, it was freaking awesome, and well worth the journey. I mean, a part of me knew it was going to be amazing since it's already been on my backlog list for a while. Plus, Alita's been haunting my Pinterest feed for the past few months, practically just begging me to pick up the manga. And now that I actually got the chance to experience it for myself, I'm so pumped to break it down with you. Now, if you're new here, then here on the Decoded series, the goal is to break down all artistic elements of different art mediums so that you'll be able to tell what gives the work its own, identifying features. Before getting into it, as always, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a like. I'm really shooting for 500 subscribers to start doing some cool new things on this channel, but I'll need you to help me get there. With that being said, without further ado, let's get into this episode of Decoded with Battle Angel Alita. Battle Angel Alita is a manga that was created in 1990, also called Gunmu? I'm not really sure how it's pronounced because it doesn't quite look like the way it's pronounced, but you guys can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But in Japanese, it translates to Gun Dream. And speaking of, differences, in the American release of the manga and all subsequent material, there also seems to be a lot of changing with the localization and a lot of names in general. The reason why, I'm actually not quite sure, but for example, in the English version as we know it, the main character is named Alita, while in Japanese, she's known as Gali, along with a few other name changes. But despite my best research, I couldn't find a reason why a lot of the names were changed, so I'll just chalk it up to localization. The manga had a few different spin-offs, along with a 2-episode OVA and a live-action movie. I'm sure if you click on this video, then there's a good chance you know about the live-action movie, and while this may be a bit of a controversial take, I actually quite enjoyed the live-action movie a lot. It definitely had some glaring flaws, and I do think the manga is much better. But to be fair, I actually watched the movie first and became interested in the manga because of the movie, so it definitely did a good job of putting my interest into the series. But with that being said, I do apologize also if I slip up while recording this and say Alita Battle Angel instead of Battle Angel Alita. It took me an embarrassingly long amount of time before I realized that the names were switched in the movie version versus the manga version. Now, going into this next section, I will be covering the story, and by no means am I promising a spoiler-free video, but at the same time I will try to avoid needless spoilers for the story if it's not relevant to what I'm talking about. So if I miss some details, it's not because I didn't know what happened before you comment.
What a disgusting cesspool of humanity. It's nothing but the dumping grounds for Zulum, you know? These people are nothing but vultures, feeding on the trash and carrion that falls from the sky.
Oh, I didn't know.
The setting for Battle Angel Alita is definitely a fascinating aspect of this story's appeal. While I was debating what to label the aesthetic of this setting, I came to the conclusion that I probably want to call it cyberpunk, and that would be the most fitting thing to describe it as. But what makes it interesting is that between the robots and super advanced security systems and many other things that imply cyberpunk, the story almost teases the concept of a cyberpunk reality to you, not really giving you the image of the high-tech urban setting that you expect, but continuously promises you that that cyberpunk city exists somewhere in this mysterious city in the sky that you never really get to see. So most of the time the story takes place in the junkyard town. And I almost argue that setting almost edges a little bit closer to a lower tech diesel punk setting, with Basically, the only thing making it sci-fi is, the extensive, robots and cyborgs all over the place. This, of course, isn't unusual for a story that adopts a cyberpunk aesthetic, as a beautiful and high-tech city surrounded by a neglected outskirt is very by the books for a dystopian setting. But it does fascinate me how Battle Angel Alita takes it a step further. It makes the part of the cool cyberpunk reality painfully unattainable, as it almost feels like it's a completely separate plane of existence, which is why I take the story as being a bit of a commentary on socioeconomic class divides, where you have a city full of mansions floating above the hood where most people grind but can never actually make it out to see what those mansions even look like. And for this reason, I actually honestly still don't know what the floating city looks like, and therefore can't really give a breakdown on the setting of it, as it's really just teased. Now, I haven't really read the material past the original run for Last Order and everything, so if it does show some of those cities in Last Order, I wouldn't know. But from what I have read, the most you even get to see of the upper city is mainly through office spaces, labs, and all of that, but you never really see the full city. What you do see, however, is plenty of the scrapyard, which has some very interesting designs throughout the entirety of it. To start, with some exceptions here and there, everything is basically made of pipes, woods, and kind of sheet metal. But, looking at these images, the pipes are definitely the main thematic element of the architecture. And even though there are some variations, this is more or less the same for most cities in the story. And any other setting just tends to be abandoned rubble, barren lands, and generalized war zones.
I want to be a hunter warrior too.
Don't be stupid! You don't know what you're saying! I didn't give you limbs to do things like this. You don't have to work. All you have to do is be beautiful. If you want money, I can...
This isn't about money! This is something for me!
This is for you?
Yes! Tonight I felt something new. Like I was really alive for the first time.
Now, with all that being said about getting the setting out of the way, the next thing I want to talk about is the character writing. The first thing about the character writing that I want to point out is that Alita is for sure an overpowered character. There are very few characters in the story that actually pose a genuine threat to her. And this isn't really a diss, as she's overpowered respectfully. And I really do believe that there are good ways to write an overpowered character in ways that still make them very fun and engaging. And it's part of the reason why I was sucked in so much to something like the second half of One Punch Man. And, to be completely honest, even about the overpowered effect, it's quite typical for anime and manga in the 90s. And honestly, just fiction in general. Since even with a lot of Western heroes, they kind of did also start becoming more overpowered in less cartoony ways and more like what you see in a lot of Japanese media. Now, to write a good overpowered character, one thing that is important to remember is that you can't sacrifice stakes just because losing the battle isn't going to realistically be one of those stakes. I'll talk about Alita's chronic case of crashing out later, but one of the stakes that makes the story so interesting is consequence. The story does not let you forget that there's a heavy consequence for this character's actions. Even if she wins a fight and is basically unharmed, there's always a consequence that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. While reading this manga, I often jokingly said at times that it felt like watching a good friend consistently make bad decisions, and you can't really do anything to stop them on the other end of the manga page, so you just kind of watch it happen and hope everything goes okay. And honestly, it really did speak to how stakes were handled in a lot of these conflicts, even though at no point did I ever think Alita was gonna lose a match. And in a way, especially later on, every fight feels like it carries stake and weight. But segueing off of that, moral ambiguity is another concept that's danced around all over the place when it comes to the character writing. While there definitely is a drive from some characters to save innocent people who are in danger, protect loved ones, the moral boundary of characters are blurry, if not non-existent in some cases. Oftentimes, the need to survive, the obligation to follow orders, and the us versus them mentalities often makes the characters act in ways that, even though they seem fully capable of making morally sound judgments, some of their actions can be quite disturbing at times due to some of the reasons listed above. But in the end, characters aren't just morally gray for the sake of being morally gray. It really drives home a central theme that really is played a lot in the question of morality, which is what it really means to be human versus a machine, and how people tend to act when other variables kind of clock in a little bit higher than the moral correctness of an action or decision. Alright, now since I did clickbait this video with trendy buzzwords to help with views, I guess I should also talk about the thing that made you click on the video. If you haven't already caught on by now, then in this story, the question is never, will this character be pushed to the edge and crash out? The question is always, what will be the end result and the consequence of this crash out? Because in every situation where there is conflict being instigated, there's an 100% chance that this character will crash out. No question. Like, it gets to the point where some people are surprised that their instigation attempt worked because she's just ready to jump at every available opportunity. And in my opinion, it's a very interesting way to write a character when done right, because it redirects the focus of combat onto how the character is going to claw their way out of the situation that they jumped into. But with that being wrapped up, that's kind of the main points I wanted to hit with character writing. So next I'll talk about character design.
That's got it.
Look, she's coming out of torpor.
Hello, my name is Ido. Do you have a name?
My name?
After all this time, she's not likely to remember much.
I think I can restore most of it.
You'll be keeping her then?
Yeah, I think so.
So before I get too deep into character design and all of the different art stuff, I do want to point out that Battle Angel Alita has like 3 different art styles. And from what I saw, it looks like they have another art style change also during Last Order as well. So for this reason, I'm not going to be perfectly imitating the art style since there's a few different directions I could go, but I am going to be covering the parts that really makes this art style signature. And if you haven't seen my intro video, which you should, click up there. I am a talentless art fan who is training myself to become a better artist. So this is more of a case study, and it's more just for me to see what I've learned after viewing this manga. Alright, hey, so this is where the part where I just kind of draw stuff and kind of talk through my thoughts of kind of what I'm referencing to the art style when doing this. So to start off, oh yeah, and by the way, when I draw this, obviously I can't draw this fast. This is sped up just for the sake of of the video, or else the actual drawing took me about 40 minutes, but it's just condensed down for the sake of this video. So the first thing I'm starting with on this is the nose and eyes. In this art style, which is a little unique for anime, is that usually full noses and full mouths are drawn on this. So basically they don't get away with just the one line for the nose and one line for the mouth, which was definitely a little bit challenging for me trying to get this. But it's one of the first things that usually stands out as to what makes this a little unique versus how it approaches art. But along with that, it matches it with the round anime eyes. Lots of light glare and highlight in the eyes. So it's kind of a bit of a mix of a little bit of realism with a bit of anime to give it a good middle ground. And when I do stories later on, maybe I might come to stories like Vagabond and whatnot, there are quite a few, mangaka that do go for this style. But for right now, I will say it definitely helps Alita's art style stand out quite a bit. So let me try to get these eyes. And I'm kind of sticking with the bushy eyebrows because I do like how this artist also tends to tends to not thin out on the eyebrows. I feel like eyebrows give a lot of expression to a drawing. All right. So I kind of botched these lashes a bit, but you know, kind of to add to it, I know in a lot of zoom-ins, you tend to see a lot of like, you know, thicker, lusher lashes, but I'm just kind of rolling with it here. All right, so just finishing up here and here. Okay. All right, and now I'm just drawing the general face shape. There tends to be quite a bit of diversity in the face shape also. Like, even on this page, as you notice, like no one character has the same face shape, which is a great way to diversify it because, you know, when it comes to a lot of anime and manga, you can give way to same face syndrome a lot. So I do appreciate how it's very rare that any character has the same face shape. The next bit I'm going to do is a bit of hatching. As really, like, you know, this face, it looks like a face, but I feel like once I start getting like the hatching, that's really going to bring out the Alita style. I do want to point out that usually for faces, it's pretty standard to just use like straight line hatching. But one thing I have noticed is that when you go outside of just like, you know, the face, like this manga uses basically like whatever style of hatching they feel like, including this style, which I like to call the fuck it we ball hatching. But since usually on the face it's just straight lines depending on where the shading's going, I'll just stick with that for this. So yep, first, one thing they always do every single time is start with some hatching on the nose. And honestly, if you don't want to get too dramatic, you can just put the nose maybe a little bit on the eye and leave it at that. But I want to try to give it a little bit of like a gruffer, like, you know, beaten and worn look. Since usually in this story, a lot of characters look very beaten and worn down by traveling and battle and whatnot. I realized that I kind of fucked up on the eyes because the eyes are not that close together in this art style. So let me fix that real quick. Okay, so now that I did that, I can extend the nose, hatching a little bit under the eye, because that implies a little bit of blush or exhaustion depending on context. What did I do there? Okay. Yep, I'm gonna put a little bit on the forehead. Maybe to give it a little bit more of a serious vibe. A little bit on the side. And you know, some of this is just to make it look like worn. Because sometimes it's shading, sometimes it can imply like, you know, scratches and so whatnot. But I kind of don't want that on the cheek though, so let me get rid of that. Okay. And there we go. Alright. And that's kind of my attempt at kind of hatching up in this style. So lastly, we will do the hair. Alright, and the last thing I'm going to do here is the hair. And just for the record, I'm not drawing Alita right now. I'm kind of just drawing my own OC, which I realize by the end of this will look a little bit like Alita, so I'll just say it's somebody cosplaying as Alita, just for fun. Okay, so first kind of just drawing, kind of taking inspiration off of Alita a little bit. I'm gonna go for a similar hairstyle, kind of in the middle, in the top of it, have some hair going up, and then the rest basically going down. We're gonna keep it simple, but I'm gonna make it a variation by making her hair a little bit longer. And this is where I shade in. This is boring and time consuming, so I'm going to speed this part up a little bit. So one thing I'm going to also add is the mandatory sheen in hair highlights that's usually shown on characters. And I kind of made jokes about this because, especially with Alita, it doesn't really matter, like, you know, what the lighting is like or if it's reflective of any kind of like hair shine. It's just always consistently there at the same point, which is why I say it's mandatory sheen, because it literally is kind of a defining feature of the character. And I will say, I wish they did this with more characters, but I've noticed that it's mainly specifically Alita and not many others. Like, for example, I think Alita is like one of like the only like 5 characters in the manga that actually have black hair. The rest don't even have colored hair. But I guess it's more of to show like, you know, attention to detail on the characters that are important. But I don't know. It's kind of funny how consistent it is with highlights. And I will say this is also quite typical of the era also, because I know just for fun, I also did a case study on Evangelion. And they tend to have a lot of mandatory highlights in that style too. Just a little bit more subtle in that one. But yeah, let me finish off the here. Yeah, this is kind of coming together. Alright, cool. And just for funsies, because I know I'm using a more intense black than you'd probably see in the art style, and that's probably more of the manga print, but I'll make it a different black just to make it a little bit more manga-like. I'm not going to go super in-depth into the outfit design, because it's pretty straightforward, grungy, dystopian cyberpunk. It's not like the flashy, like, you know, urban city style. It's, you know, the junkyard style. But usually what you'll see a lot in this art style, aside from like a lot of cyborg parts, because a lot of them are cyborgs and machines, you tend to see a lot of capes, cloaks, jackets, and usually like some kind of like latex suit under it. In some arcs you might see a little bit more armor, but that really depends on the situation. For this, I'm gonna go for the style of like the cape with the latex suit under it. So, once again, we're gonna return. Let me get the basic shape to this first. So I'm gonna put the neckline just so you know that this is the suit, and some folds over here for the cape. Okay. And I'm hatching along the way because, you know, hatching is very mandatory for this style. And since this is very clothy, I'm kind of utilizing the style of kind of like a fall off like cloth style. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but I know it's usually a style for drawing. Basically, when you're trying to do something really clothy, what's good to imagine is just kind of a ball at the top, and then like kind of imagine how cloth would hang off of it on the side. So for this, I'm utilizing it for the shoulder and kind of how the cape falls off of the shoulder as well. So let me put my little hatches there and kind of so you can see direction. And honestly, since I'm a little fatigued drawing at this point, it's a little bit sloppier than the face. Bear with me. And usually to show shine, shine is usually done a very similar way to the hair sheen, just usually horizontal instead of vertical on this one. But yeah, let's just get that wrapped up. I know it's a little sloppier than the face, and I'm gonna extend the hair. I think I was going for something asymmetrical, but I don't really like it, so let's add more hair on this side. And there we go. That's my drawing of basically an Alita OC based on the art style that I picked up from reading this manga. Now with that out of the way, we can go into the section for closing thoughts and kind of how I felt reading this manga.
Is just the greatest. Sometimes, if I keep staring at it, I can feel it calling to my soul. What kind of people live there, I wonder? My brother wanted to go to Zalem once. He even broke the law and built an illegal airship. As for me, I'll just make lots and lots of money until finally I can go there myself.
Battle Angel Alita. Man, what a trip this was. So, honestly, it made me think of so much that it almost is difficult to think of where to start with it. But kind of sticking with the bit, I'll start off by talking about kind of why I decided to title this video Alita, Queen of Crashouts. Because I feel like in this, it kind of felt like one crash out after another, one fight instigated, as truly she is the Battle Angel. But what I really felt like really hit me a lot was how all of those consequences, how all of those actions, all of those lessons just continuously built even if things went well after a fight, or things went catastrophically, maybe there was one crash out that made Alita lose everything she loved. It kind of built to create a character who really understands, the consequences of her actions, and builds off of that, knowing that she can't dwell on the past, but has to continue moving forward to make a better future. And all of that really made for the ending to be a really satisfying, just Gohan style crash out that really made me feel quite euphoric at the end. And I think what this story is trying to say in a lot of its messaging is really what it means to be human, and what it means to just unapologetically make mistakes and fuck up, and maybe be a little bit too hot-headed and impulsive, but had learned to live with it and learn how to be better through whatever mistakes happen. Now, with the actual thematics also of it just being a cyberpunk story, it was definitely nuts in that regard. And like I said earlier, I really like how it teased the typical cyberpunk, like clearly it's here, it's out there somewhere, but it's something a little bit unachievable. And through this, it's very hard not to, not to see the message it was going on about like socioeconomic classes, and which really helps build to the real world. A lot of the conflicts that were shown in this manga kind of represent a lot of themes of like manufactured scarcity, where basically a few people live off of, the struggle and suffer to others. I think there was one particular panel, which I'll put up right now actually, where in a classic Alita Crashout style, is just straight up disobeying orders because she's gotten to the point where she says, we're the ones who do your work, we're the ones who make your food, and you're the ones who benefit off of it. And I feel like this is something that is said from a character who has lived in the scrapyard their whole lives, understands the consequences of not just her actions, but the actions of everybody she's worked with during this journey. My main takeaway from Alita Battle Angel, just in my closing thoughts, is that it's truly a beautiful story. Well, a beautiful, sometimes shocking, sometimes kind of fucked up story, but yet, even still, a beautiful story about the nature of humanity through all of its upsides and just downright ugliest parts of them. But I'm really glad that, I took the time to finish this manga so that I can do this episode with you. And hopefully you also like some of the new content I added. If you haven't noticed, with each episode, I try new things. Yeah, I try to be really innovative to keep the videos interesting. Whether it's, a study of animation, a study of drawing, music, I try to mix it up a little bit. But once again, let me know how you felt about it in the comment section. It would definitely will help with the direction I'm going, and hoping to get the next video out a little bit quicker than this one. But, as I said in the beginning, craziness in life. My goal is that, the more and more I'm able to build up subscribers from this, the easier it will get to actually put these out. But with that being said, that draws this video to an end. As I said earlier, if you liked it, be sure to leave a like, even and I honestly, I've been loving the discussions you all have been leaving on my last videos. It brings me so much joy. It almost actually makes me want to make a video just responding to your comments, which, hey, if you want that, let me know. I'll for sure think about it, as long as you guys aren't too crazy in the comment sections. Thank you all for your support. Like I said, it means the world to me, and I'll catch you on the flip side with the next video. This is Anima, signing out.